Just a quick review regarding our previous topic, types of communication. We had four bases on where we focused our discussion. Number one basis was the mode or the expression. Number two was the flow of communication. Number three was the purpose or the style. And number four was the level or the context. So I hope each of these bases are still clear to us. We still remember what they are, and of course, what the relevance of knowing these types, the purpose and the applications of these types of communications, and the advantages of learning. Hopefully, as we begin to understand that nonverbal communication, no words, actually have more meaning in terms of words, as Mirabayan has introduced to us and explained to us. And we also looked into the different aspects of nonverbal communication, of how powerful or meaningful each aspect is. And hopefully, we also have more respect to organizational type of communication and the flow of communication and how important intrapersonal communication is as the foundation type of communication. If you have questions or insights you want to share, kindly post it in our discussion board, or you could also share it with us during the synchronous session of BBL Collaborate. For our introduction on the topic's elements of communication, I have chosen an article from Stanford, and it discusses about how people perceive interruptions in conversation. So potentially one time or another you have experienced interrupting someone, cutting someone while that person is still speaking, and maybe we have also experienced being interrupted. So how do we react to this? Is it okay with us? Is it not okay? So to know more about this, let's proceed to the next slide. According to the article, Hilton found that American English speakers have different conversational styles. So we're looking at it from an American or Western culture or perspective. She identified two distinct groups: the high intensity speakers, who are generally uncomfortable with moments of silence and conversation and consider talking at the same time a sign of engagement. So these types of speakers are okay with interruptions. However, low intensity speakers find simultaneous chatter to be rude and prefer people to speak one at a time in a conversation. So, meaning they're not very welcoming of interruptions or people who do not let them finish speaking. Hilton also added that her research actually sheds light on cognitive, social, and cultural aspects of human interaction. Cognitive, because it adds knowledge; social adds more awareness in how we deal with people; and of course, the cultural potential differences that we have. So, hopefully, by knowing the two distinct groups and how they react, we would begin to become more versatile and understanding of the different reactions of people. Hilton further added that people care about being interrupted, meaning those small interruptions have a massive effect on the overall communication down the line. Breaking apart what an interruption means is essential if we want to understand how humans interact with each other. So, knowing and understanding what an interruption means to us, means to other people, will definitely help us better understand each other and strengthen or respect relationships. So, as we discuss about this, hopefully we also discover more about ourselves. Are we more of a high intensity speaker or a low intensity speaker? Are our relatives, friends, peers high intensity speakers or low intensity speakers? But of course, I think it would be best if we would have this certain communication, letting them know if it's really okay with us if we are interrupted or if we're not interrupted. So at least we're not going to be guessing. So it's good to be clear, let the other person know that, you know what, I'd rather finish speaking first before you respond, or it's okay for me if you interrupt. So it's good to be clear on what type of conversation the communication process would go. Nature of communication, just to share with you before we proceed with the 8 elements of communication. Nature of communication is number one, it's dynamic, meaning it's ever changing. So when we look into the elements of communication later on, so there would be potentially surprises here and there. We all know that a communication process is not formulaic, it's not always structured. We don't know what topic we're going to be discussing and where that topic would lead to. That's why meetings sometimes would always be very lengthy, or coffee break conversations would be so diverse. So it's always very dynamic, ever changing. Second nature of communication, it's inevitable, irreversible, unrepeatable. When we talk about communications or being inevitable, it's unavoidable. We have to communicate. Even if we don't like to communicate, not communicating is communicating. Irreversible, meaning we cannot take it back. So if we have said a hurtful word that we regret saying, even if we apologize, it's not going to erase it from our memories. It's there already planted, recorded, and we just hope that our apology would make it right, because we can never take it back. It's irreversible, so we have to be careful. And it's also unrepeatable. No matter how magical a communication process situation is, and we want to repeat it exactly that way, we can never do that. So it's also giving us this realization that it's a once in a lifetime opportunity, each conversation, communication, situation, or process that we have with people in our lives. The last nature of communication I want to share with you before we proceed to the elements is systemic. Systemic is different from systematic. When we talk about systemic, it emphasizes interconnectedness, or how each element in a certain system are connected with one another. They're interdependent. If there is something wrong with one element, definitely it will impact or affect all of the elements of communication. And this is hinged on the theory of systems theory. Systems theory says that it's based on the principle that the component parts of a system can be best understood in the context of the relationships with each other and other systems rather than in isolation. So I'm just really trying to emphasize that even though we are going to enumerate the 8 elements of communication, hopefully, we see the 8 elements of communication in a way, how they interact with one another, how they potentially could affect the entire communication process, and how important each element is in the system. So to know more about the importance of the nature of communication embedded in the discussion of the elements of communication, let us proceed. So communication refers to the act by one or more persons of sending or receiving messages that are distorted by noise, occur within a context, and have some effect and provide some opportunity for feedback. So this definition of communication emphasizes not only the process of communication, but also the elements of communication. So it's now specifying that there is a receiver and a source, there is a message, there is a noise or are noises, and there is a context, effect, feedback. We'll deal with this one by one as we proceed. 8 elements of communication. Number 1, source dash receiver. 2, receiver dash decoder. 3, message. 4, feedback. 5, channel. 6, noise. 7, context. 8, effect. So to understand the 8 elements of communication using a systems theory thinking, we look at the model by Joseph DeVito. And the name of his model is the Universals of Human Communication. So this model shows us how each element interacts with one another, the relationship of the elements, and hopefully we understand it as a whole in a process of communication. So we have the 8 elements: source, encoder, receiver, decoder, message. The double-headed arrows are representing feedback. Number 5, channel. 6, noise. 7, context. 8, effect. Okay. The first element of communication is the source dash encoder. So here, DeVito wants to emphasize that the source of the message has to be able to encode, create a message that is clear and easy to understand. The second element is receiver dash decoder, also emphasizing that the receiver does not only receive the message, but hopefully try to understand it, decode it, interpret it in the way that the source wants it to be interpreted. Now, hopefully, we also realize that each circle is actually labeled as both receiver decoder, source encoder, same as this one. Now, the reason for that is also trying to let us be aware that we are always both source encoders and receiver decoders. For the third element of communication, we have the message, and we have 2 types of message. This seems to be familiar to us, hopefully, because this is the type of communication based on expression or mode. We have verbal, use of words, and nonverbal, without the use of words. And we all know that when we send a message, it could be through oral or spoken, or it's written, or it could be just a mere nod or a wave of the hand or a smile. So these are the messages. The fourth element of communication is feedback. Feedback is represented by the double-headed arrows in the model. So if you notice, we have 2 types of feedback. Feedback from self is more of the intrapersonal communication. We always do this. When we communicate with other people, we also assess ourselves. Am I speaking too fast? Is my voice too soft? Is the person I'm speaking with really understanding me? So we are actually giving feedback to ourselves, from ourselves. Also, the second type is feedback from others. So when they respond, when they react, when they give us their facial expression about what we have said or what we have shared with them, then that's feedback from others. Of course, feedback from others and from self wouldn't always be positive. Some would be negative, and feedback is good for us to learn how to adjust. Okay, so hopefully the adjustment we're going to make would help make the conversation process or situation better, leading to the goal, which is understanding.